Are you stuck in an online adult video rut? Well, this video could be for you. Welcome back to the MindStrong Edge. Today's letter is from someone who's actually been very, very bold. They're writing to us about a developing problem, a problem that they've had for a very long time, and now they're feeling it's starting to impact their life and their relationship, and it is the use of online adult video content. Now, YouTube does restrict some things that we can say on this channel, so you will excuse us if we do use the more formal description of what we're talking about today, but I think you can understand exactly what it is that we're talking about. He begins, "Hi, MindStrong Edge. I'm a guy in my early 30s, working in a busy office, surrounded by people, mostly women. I'm in a relationship with a great partner, but I'm starting to wonder if I've gotten a problem that's getting in the way of us connecting." Now, this is a really interesting place to start because you are acknowledging the fact that the connection between yourself and your partner could be compromised by this problem that you've had for a while. So you're already a long way down the track of acknowledging the problem and potentially doing something about it. It's something I've never really talked about because, well, it's a bit embarrassing. And to my point of the fact that, yes, it is embarrassing, but you have made the connection and you've written to us, which is a very, very bold move on your part. So I congratulate you for putting this in writing and sending it in to us. It's a bit, it's something I've never really talked about because it's been embarrassing. Okay, we said that, but I've been watching adult online entertainment regularly for years, maybe more than I should. I've always brushed it off as something normal or something that every guy probably does, but now I'm beginning to wonder if it's become more than just a habit. Well, it is, a fact that guys, once they get to 12 or 13, have probably been exposed to online adult entertainment on the internet in some way, shape, or form. And there's really not a lot of education around this. And this is going to be the point of this video today, is that a lot of the information that you get is from, and this is going to be a contentious point of view, but bear with me. Feel free to write in the comments if you feel differently. But a lot of the information surrounding the use of online adult entertainment comes from a female perspective. We really don't get a guy's point of view. We get the impact it has on relationships, and you've already touched on that as well. We get the impact it has on women, degrading women in a sense that it puts women in positions, well, not strictly positions, but in situations that they are probably outside of normality for most people. And it ultimately causes men to have an attitude towards women that is detrimental to relationships. But what we're going to do today is we're going to talk about this from the male's point of view, okay? Accepting all those arguments and points from the female perspective as completely valid. But what we need to do is we need to just hone in on the male perspective of what's actually happening from a psychological point of view to you to keep you in that rut of consuming online adult entertainment. Of course, it's very accessible as well, which doesn't help. I guess part of me, he carries on, I guess part of me is used to think of it as a way to unwind, almost like a release after a long day. Some nights when I'm home feeling stressed or just frustrated from work, I'll turn to it, convincing myself that it's just a way to relax or distract myself. And in all honesty, it can well have that effect for you. And I'm sure that at the end of it all, you feel like you've accomplished something in terms of addressing that stress and frustration from work. But that's because it's taking you away from reality into a fantasy world, and we will dig more into that in just a sec. But now I'm starting to feel like I'm lying to myself. Even on days when I don't feel stressed, it's still on my mind like a reflex. Well, that's because it's an addiction. I mean, you're describing something here that has actually become an addiction for you. It's an easy place for you to go. It's very accessible. You just switch it on and away you go. It's, for the most part, free, and you're in. It's easy to tell myself that it's just a way to cope with stress. Of course, with addictions, we always have a reason as to why we do it, rather than admit that it's an addiction. There's always a reason. But I wonder if using it as an escape instead of facing things that actually matter. Well, that's, I think you're on point there. It's not just about work stress either. Whenever my partner and I have a disagreement, I find myself reaching for it afterwards. Okay, this is where things are getting a little bit interesting, because now what we're doing is we're mapping components of our relationship, our personal relationship, onto our relationship with the online adult entertainment material. I keep telling myself that it's no big deal, that everyone has their own way of dealing with things, but I'm starting to question that it's just another excuse. The truth is, it feels like I'm drifting further from her. Okay, and that's probably a very valid feeling for you as well. And I don't like the person I'm becoming because of it. My friend, this is a very honest letter that you've written, and I applaud you for the language and the approach that you're using on this. It's very mature. You're in your 30s, and it doesn't say how long you've been using material for, but this is a very bold coming out and acknowledgement of what is becoming a problem for you. I've noticed that when I'm with her, it sometimes feels like my mind is somewhere else. We'll be having a nice evening together, and all of a sudden, it's like I'm mentally checked out. She's even started asking if I'm okay or if I've got something on my mind. But I always brush it off, telling her everything's fine. This is something that we would role play a little bit in the therapy space, just to get a sense of how it's actually going down, because there's not a great deal of detail in here about the dynamic, but it'd be great to actually understand, like, what sort of language is she using? Do you think that there is something behind, or is she reluctant to dig deeper? How is your relationship that would allow that sort of conversation to happen? It's like there's a divide between us that I can't seem to close. I'm starting to feel guilty, like I'm hiding this whole side of me from her. Well, you are. That's the bottom line there. And I wonder if she can sense it. Okay, well, that's just what we just said. There is a chance that she probably can. And you say here, she probably can. And I'm just in denial. There probably is very much an underlying sense that something is wrong. The intimate side of your relationship with her, and this is something that we would probably talk about. We'd probably just put on the table and just sort of, see how the relationship is between you on that level. But don't discount a woman's intuition when it comes to subtle changes in the way that you approach her intimately, whether it's just a hug, a kiss, or whether it's something in the bedroom or something else. Those subtle changes, they don't go unnoticed. He goes on to say here, even with my mates. Now this is the interesting. I've already read through this briefly, but this is I felt where it got rather interesting. Even with my mates, it's starting to feel like there's a gap between what I show and what I'm actually going through. Some of my friends joke about their own habits, and it's always been easy to laugh along and act like it's no big deal. The relationship with your friends, I get it. If we're just all guys in the room, there's not too much scope, to be honest with you. I get what you're talking about here. A couple of them have mentioned feeling a bit of distance from their own partners. Well, that's interesting that some are actually talking about it in the same, and I would be wondering whether that's what's triggered you to consider that as well. And I can't help but feeling the same way. But they don't seem to think it's anything serious, so I keep quiet, acting like I'm on the same page. I don't know if they're just playing it down, or maybe I'm just the one who is actually in over his head here. Interesting to draw comparisons without any sort of real dialogue, which, let's be honest, it may never happen at that level that you're talking about with your mates. But it's an interesting thought process to go through. But every time I try to laugh it off, it only leaves me feeling more uneasy. Absolutely. You're denying something, or you're keeping something out of reach that is actually knocking at the door and knocking quite loudly. I've even tried to tell myself that it's just a phase, or that it will go away on its own. It doesn't. Okay, it does not. You might have periods of abstinence, but it's always there unless you start to look at this material differently, and we will talk about this in just a second. But lately I've started to worry that I'm fooling myself, and maybe it's gone beyond what's normal. There is no sense of normal consumption of this sort of material. You could say that the casual sort of glance or the casual exposure to this material might consider to be normal because of the abundance of it, the fact that it's everywhere, but there is nothing that you would classify as normal. It is not normal to be consuming this material, period. That's it, really. Let me say, I want to be there for my partner fully without feeling like I have hidden a part of my life pulling me away from her. Okay, that's a really good incentive right there. It's gotten to the point where even after being close with her, I sometimes feel the need to go back to my phone, and I'm assuming by your phone you mean to consume something online. I hate admitting it, but it's the truth. I want to feel connected, but instead I'm left feeling like I'm just coasting along, unable to fully engage with her. And that is because your relationship with her, at least your level, has changed. And we're going to look at this in a sec. I just want to get this letter done before we really start delving into what happens to guys when they consume this material. It's really important. And remember, we're just talking from the guy's point of view. What is actually going on? Where is it putting you with respect to relationships? I'm not sure what I was hoping to get out of this letter, but I feel like I need some guidance on what to do next. Is this something other guys go through? Absolutely. And probably more than you think. Am I making too much of a big deal out of it? No. Or should I actually be worried? It's not a case of being worried, it's a case of being smart. It's a case of realize what's happened to you. And as we've talked about in other videos, when you see it, you will see it the next time. Once you can see that thing sneaking up on you and what it's doing to you, you'll recognize it and you'll be able to consciously control it. But until you actually see it, it will grab you, like you said, that impulse to go back to your phone, it will grab you before you even have a chance to think about it. So what we're trying to do across everything we do here at MindStrong Edge is to encourage you to think, right? To be really present cognitively is the term, and to modify your behavior. There's a part of you that is still a child, and this happens to everybody. And that child will run up and demand your attention without any warning or notice at all. And it will do this constantly, and it will come to you with immature thoughts and impulses and a whole raft of things that we learnt when we were kids that we never shed ourselves of. And what we continue to do is we continue to just give into that. We give into it all the time, but we don't think that that's what it is. Now, it could be that child's behavior was influenced by our parents. So really all we're seeing is our childish self's interpretation of a side of our parents, and we're simply just bringing that back time and time again. But what we're trying to do here on this channel is to show you that you can be a lot more aware, and you can be more grown up, and you can control that thing and just say, hey, look, just stop right there, okay? I don't need you in my life today, okay? And you can get on and be far more in control, or sense of in control. Certainly things like addiction such as this, there is a complete sense of loss of control. So we want to turn that around. He finishes by saying, any advice would be really good help. Thanks for listening, Jay. We'll just call you Jay for the purpose of today. We're not into giving away names on this channel. It's all in confidence. If you are thinking of writing in, we will keep all your information confidential from the channel. But Jay, look, what happens in online adult entertainment? And I'm speaking mainstream here. I know, there are as many different genres in this world as there's so many, and there's new ones being invented all the time to try and satisfy people's niches. I put it to you that you haven't actually said what you're actually into, and I'll be honest with you, if we were sitting across the room from each other, that's one of the things I'll be asking, is to just describe to me what it is that you're gravitating to, and what it is about that keeps pulling you in. So we're just going to go mainstream style today, without going into anything too fringy or fetishy, to talk about this. And I hope you get something out of this, because a guy's point of view, and the main argument for against the use of this material is that it's degrading to women. Yes, it is. But the thing is, and this is the controversial point, is that what's actually happening itself in terms of a media production, a movie or a television production, and it doesn't matter whether it's amateur or professional or whatever, is that the female performer is the one that's in the power seat. Okay, she is holding the balance of power in this production. She's the one who's being paid vastly more than the male performer, And she is the one that is permitting the scene to occur and happen. Now, I know that there are genres of this material where, there is some force at play. And we're not talking about that today. We're talking about just mainstream consuming online or adult entertainment, audio through audio and visual medium that is stimulating for us as a man. And what's happening in that, as I say, is that the female performer has all the power. And what we don't realize as a man watching this is that the everything about it features the woman, okay? And there's a lot of point of view material as well, which you don't see the guy at all. But even in productions that do feature a male and a female or multiples of those performers, the male performer is very much downplayed. They virtually have no dialogue once the scene starts happening. They're very much like not featured. There's nothing about their performance that really is promoted as in the production. And directors of this material know how to do this, and they do it very deliberately, is that it's all about the female performer. She is the centerpiece, the star of this, and she is the one that is permitting the thing to happen that happens, okay? And what you're doing as someone that's viewing this material is that you are basically becoming that male performer. And that's why the male performer's performance is very much downplayed. It's very subtle. And sometimes you don't even get to see their face. And that's so that it makes it very accessible for you as the viewer to go, yep, that's me. I'd be doing that. I'm there. And in an instant, your brain has made that leap and you're in that movie and you're in that scene. Because they know that the more they show of the guy, the more you've got to compare yourself to. If there's a really strapping, handsome-looking guy in the scene, and we're seeing a lot of him, some people would say, "Oh, that's borderline gay. I don't want to see that," right? Because you don't, because you're not there to see that. And again, we're talking about straight entertainment here. The same thing that I'm describing can work in other ways too, but I'm just going down the straight and narrow path today because it's just too complex otherwise. But what's happening is that path for you as the consumer on this side of the screen needs to be so accessible for you just to sort of just make that leap so that you're now in the scene. And it's produced very specifically to do that. So what becomes of this? Well, it entices you to become a player in the scene. All right, very, very easily to do that. There are psychosomatic responses that will allow you to feel obviously certain responses to what you see visually, and that's why we do it, right? But here's the thing, is that there's a massive imbalance between the very, very empowered female performer who is allowing this unseen, faceless male to do to her what she permits. And even in terms of the production, female performers will have their list of things that they will and will not do. And it's a known thing, that's just, this is the menu. This is what's going to cost you for me to do this on camera. This is the nuts and bolts of media production. And so that male performer is very much submissive in a sense, because it is the female performer who's permitting the action to happen in a particular way. And she's loving it, of course she's loving it. She's being paid to love it. Look, if this is something you don't agree with, put something in the comments, because I think this is a very interesting subject, because we're talking about the way in which this material is actually directed and produced to achieve a certain result. There can't be too much of a barrier for the male consumer to put himself in the shoes or the bare feet of the male performer that's on the camera. But what it does is it's very empowering for the female, and it's completely the opposite for the male. So the more time you spend consuming this material, the more you're putting yourself in that position, that submissive position of that male performer, that faceless, has no personality, doesn't talk male performer that's just going through the motions while the camera features the female performer. And this is terrible for you as a man to consume this, because it disempowers you. It takes away so much of your power because when you are in this intimate environment, you're down here. Like you're not on level with your partner. It's very much like that. Yes, there are some genres of this material that try to achieve this, and they will call it female friendly. And that's because it shows as much of the guy as it does of the woman. But by and large, mainstream, it doesn't do that. The guy is right down here, okay? And that's just the way it is. It's produced that way. And it's done that way very specifically so that it's incredibly accessible for you as the viewer. And with this in mind, if we go back through this letter and you think about some of the things you're doing and how you're using this material, you're not using it in a particularly assertive way. It's not doing anything to assert your masculinity. You're doing it to relax. You're doing it when your partner and you have a disagreement. Is this your default position where you go to your safe place now? Is this a place where you can just feel like you're just closed and you've got your comfort zone? But it's certainly not empowering you to get back out into the world and to tackle these problems head on. It's more of a retreat, a cave, a secret place that you go to where you don't really have to do anything. You really don't have to face your masculinity head on or do anything about it. And also, obviously it teaches you incredibly bad habits towards intimacy itself, because intimacy should not be, that sort of stretched to the extremes. One person extremely empowered and one not. Yes, I know that there are fetishes that operate in those domains, and that's a completely different discussion. But we're talking about mainstream in relation to this letter that we had from you today. It's not a phase. It won't go away on its own. But what you need to do is look at that guy. Not look at the guy, but you know what I mean? Consider that male performer who's being paid an absolute pittance just to go through the motions and to basically be a surrogate for you, for your mind to become a player in the scene. That's all he is doing. And I can tell you, I saw a documentary by Louis Trudeau about this, and he talked to a number of male performers, very, very famous male performers, and it was very, very sad, incredibly sad to see these male performers as men, and just to see what an empty shell they had become as a result of just being the faceless, speechless performer, when obviously they're performing in a world where it's all about the girl. It's all about her, and it's all about them just going through the motions. Very, very sad. I won't go on about that anymore, but I just wanted to give you that thought. Have a think about that. Have a think about that for a moment. Draw your attention away from the girl and just have a think about that guy. Okay, and the more that you do that, the more your mind will go to that and realize that there are two people in this scene, and that guy who you are, trying to put yourself into his shoes, is in a very sorry position. It is not a nice place to be, because he's playing very much a very submissive role in order to allow you to find yourself into that scene. There you go. That's all I want to say about that. We did actually do an article on this some time ago, and this is something that we talk about a lot in therapy, particularly with guys that have this particular problem, is change your perspective. See what's actually happening. Put yourself in the director's shoes for a moment. Go, no, I don't want to see his face. I don't want to see his face, all right? I just want to see her. I don't want to see him at all. We're not paying him enough to have him a feature on this movie. And once you start seeing that, it will change the way that you view or see the material next time you look at it. Is that those male performers are not all they're cracked up to be. And you don't want to be putting yourself in their shoes, because it's not a great place to be. If you would like to send in a letter, and thank you, by the way, for that letter. It's opened up a big can of worms. It's a really interesting can of worms, and I hope you got something out of this today, Jay, and anyone else that's going down this road. And there's a lot of us, believe me, that have been down here or are still caught in the rut. The email address for you to send in a letter is on the description for our YouTube channel. We'd love to hear from you. It will take us 2 or 3 weeks to get to your letters. We are actually moving studios this week. We have a brand new studio, so a little bit of a lag. It's a great time to start a YouTube channel, isn't it? Just when you're moving into a new studio and therapy space. But anyhow, that's by the by. Send us a letter in if you like, and by all means, if you got something out of this video, please hit the like button and subscribe too, so you'll catch the next video. In the meantime, this has been the MindStrong Edge. Catch you next time.